This is the weekly roundup presented by the Conversation Project. I am Jay Cleveland Payne, bringing you 12 stories from the past week we covered inside of the Conversation Project's Things You Might Have Heard, our daily weekday morning news program, updating you on news that's happening. And you guys are saying conversational. 12 stories that we're revisiting right now that were conversational, that were cool, that I just could not get out of my head. So I had to get back to them. That some need updates, some we probably wish we could actually forget. We'll give you to those, including stories, including three very fine characters, being Luigi Mangione, also Daniel Penny, and of course, Haliey Welch. Maybe not quite fine characters, but you can be the judge of that, as you actually were the judge of getting them into our news coverage all week long. You let me know if I got the right stories with Tap 12 for the week by emailing me at the conversation inbox, gmail.com, replying in comments in this video. And if you're watching this live, as record this on Saturday morning-ish, reply in the comments. We'll try to respond back as best as possible. It gets a little weird sometimes, but if you're watching the video replay, it may not be so bad. If you're listening to the audio replay, it's going to be kind of weird. But just if you're in here live, let me know. We'll comment on the stories as they come through. So thank you so much for anybody who is joining us live, whether on X, whether on YouTube, or whether on Facebook. Let's get into the news stories, 12 stories, no particular order as they're being presented, and not really a top 10, top 12. But the first two stories are here on purpose. And you can see where I kind of should have did a better job of organizing things a bit later in this show, as I saw when I lined them out. The first story, a story that's overtaken everything and all coverage all over the place. And this, of course, with a big week of news going on, by the way, is the story with Daniel Perry. No, I'm sorry. The story with Luigi Mangione. Let's get the right story down. Luigi Mangione has been charged with the murder of United Healthcare CEO. Daniel Perry is coming up next, though. Mangione was apprehended in Altoona, Pennsylvania, eating at McDonald's when he was recognized by a customer who went to an employee. They called the police. All that happened, all that went down. He, of course, is a 26-year-old suspect in the murder of CEO Brian Thompson of United Healthcare. What does this all mean for anything? Well, in the week that this has happened, Mangione has become, even before he actually was identified and arrested, a hero to many, a misguided hero to many, a hero that we don't really deserve. But because he literally killed a man who people are blaming for killing other people, not directly, but because he runs a healthcare system and his co-systems basically do their best to deny coverage, he is the person that's getting a lot of love from a lot of places that you may not expect. The common man. And what's become kind of a weird thing is politicians having kind of fight the line between saying murder is really, really bad, we should do something about this, and, well, the guy ran a healthcare company and it really wasn't really nice. The people who are sort of both siding this thing is interesting, because it is. It's a thing. But Mr. Mangione, as updates are coming down, has been arrested. He's still in Pennsylvania. He's fighting extradition at the moment, but he now has a new high-powered lawyer from New York City who's going to handle all the cases going on. In Pennsylvania, he's charged with falsifying documents and carrying handguns, things like that. In New York City, those will be doubled up, but the big thing in New York City is second-degree murder. Second-degree murder, and the reason why second-degree is first-degree is held for public officials, police officers, folks in authority. This may get bumped up, possibly, because of the way it went down, what we're going to see. You should all, if you're a news nerd and you want to follow anything, you know what's going on. But this, of course, is the most engaging story of the week because it's the top story everybody's talking about, and it has gotten to all aspects of news and coverage. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone has a say about it. Everybody hates their healthcare system unless they love it. Everybody hates the murder, although they don't mind this guy making it a big thing to talk about. It's like that. It's just like that. But this is not the only controversial case with a defendant who has to basically show up for something. But the next one, he no longer has to show up for, because we're now talking about, as I'm saying properly, Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny has been found not guilty in the chokehold death of Jordan Neely. Now, this is a misnomer. He has been found not guilty on one charge. He was found, there was a deadlock in another charge. So with that all said, the case is done. He was basically, the jury was dismissed on Friday when it could not come to the decision after deliberation on the manslaughter charge. But they could come to a acquittal, a not guilty charge on this one second charge here. The issue is the death of Jordan Neely. Criminal negligent homicide is what he's acquitted of. The manslaughter charge was a deadlock in some sort of just the jury couldn't come to it. So now Daniel Penny is a free man. However, the family of Jordan Neely has filed a civil lawsuit against him so they can come after him for money because of wrongful death. That's essentially what got OJ. OJ did not convict of the murder, but the civil lawsuit by the families of the victims were able to hold him accountable, if you can say that, for a long time, essentially keeping him from any money, if you will. Also, that meant OJ fought a lot to hide his money. This was an issue. This was a court case that had debates on everything: race, mental health, public safety, how people deal with life on the subway, how people deal with people who are mentally ill, how people and families actually deal with those, because let's remember, the family wasn't exactly in control of the young man when he was out there on the streets accosting people. And there is also a little bit of freedom of speech and expression in there as well. This became a big topic of the election issues as Donald Trump and JD Vance pushed this one really, really, really big. But right now we know that Daniel Penny is living the free-ish life, if you will. He's going to hang out this weekend with Donald Trump at the Army-Navy game. He's going to have a bunch of profiles. He's been on Fox News already. We'll get to hear his story. There'll be books. There'll be things going on. There'll be so many ways to break this thing down going forward. But for the moment, we just know that Daniel Penny is free, and the Neely family of Jordan Neely, has to live with what's left over. We should have did a better job of actually combining stories and orders. We got 2 Trump stories dealing with the national stage that are split with like 3 stories in between them. So bear with me. It makes sense. Like I said, no particular order as we throw these things around because they're just 12 stories from the week. But an early story from the weekend that got a lot of attention, and a lot of people are saying, really? Because it is. Now, Donald Trump went to Paris last Saturday, for the opening of Notre Dame Cathedral. And the headline we put out there for this is Trump's Paris trip marks return to global stage as leaders turn the page on Biden. The main write-up of the story is the fact that the Biden presidency is obviously over. It's over in less than 40 days at this point, because Donald Trump will become the next president within a month or so and take over what's going on. And he has given his agenda. He said what he's going to say. He's got all things going on. We'll get to the tariffs in Canada specifically in a few stories. But he's being welcomed, or at least he's being lauded by world leaders who've essentially seen this show before and know how to play Donald Trump. And I say that on purpose, know how to play Donald Trump, playing to his ego, playing to, his sense of being important. He was invited to be a dignitary, although he's not the president. The actual person representing the United States was the First Lady, Joe Biden. And of course, Donald Trump sat nearby and took a picture and sold a cologne on that. That's a whole nother story that we had this week. You can check out the links for old stories of that one. But Donald Trump was basically open arms were given to him as he showed up in France from Macron. In fact, somebody commented the fact that how Trump just sort of walked in and invited Macron into his own house. It just seemed like that. He met with Macron and Zelensky at the same time, met with various people on the sidelines. He's meeting with people on the side and saying, hey, you should come to my inauguration. He invited President Xi. He's probably not coming, but he's just inviting people to his inauguration. He's up and just being Donald Trump. He is welcoming himself and being welcomed on the world stage by many folks. Emmanuel Macron starting sort of the handing the diplomacy to kind of get in good graces. Actually, Macron and Trump actually had a fairly good relationship based on what's going on. They were really bros, and he was really impressed, that being Trump, how Macron ran things and really showed things off. The Bastille Day parade almost turned into a Bastille Day parade in D.C. until the general's like, yeah, we don't actually do that for a reason. I don't think that reason really got through to Donald Trump, but it is what it was. Trump is out there shaking hands with Prince William. They're telling folks that they're worried about the whole king guy, when the royal family's not really talking about that stuff, and talking to Zelensky, Volodymyr, and Volodymyr Zelensky is giving very positive vibes about how the war in Ukraine will eventually wrap up, which Trump says he was going to wrap up day one. He has a lot of day one stuff to get to, so he's got a very busy day one going forward. Back on the main stage, back in the world, and he is in charge, whether we like it or not. And I say that on purpose as well. We're praying for our president. We're praying for our nation. We're praying for great things the next 4 years to come. And we're praying that whatever comes after that can't get any crazier than the last 4 times you had him and the 4 times a year we'll have him going forward. I'm not going to go deep into detail on this one, but this, if you're watching the video, you're seeing a picture of the college football playoff bracket, which will begin play on the 20th of December and go all the way to after New Year's for many extra games. 12 teams in the playoff with 4 teams getting a bye. Those teams going to be Oregon, Boise State, SMU, and Texas. So that's how it works out. Other teams are in the mix, in the hunt, because they are just as good. Of course, Georgia being a that's not right. That's not it. That's the wrong picture. I'm sorry. I apologize. That is not what we should be saying. The top 4 teams are Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona. I don't know what's up with that picture. We just have to pull that from memory. I guess somebody got ahead of themselves and assumed that Texas was winning that game, and they did not. No, Texas is in the playoffs along with Tennessee, so there are 3 SEC teams in there. But yeah, that's got Alabama in there. This is all, yeah, that's all wacky. I apologize for the picture. Ignore that picture. The 4 seeds are Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State. The biggest, I guess you can call it, the knock against this, or the love against this, is the fact that SMU got in over Alabama. Alabama was a 3-loss team, but they also had a stronger schedule. Doesn't matter. They didn't pick them. And this was the first time in a long time that Alabama's not been in the hunt or really close. And Nick Saban is sort of like sitting back, counting his money, thinking, boy, I'm glad I don't have to deal with this stuff this year. We got new football coming up, big football coming up in a few days, so be prepared for this one. It doesn't necessarily kill the bowl season, but first 4 games are at-home extra games for these schools, and then the bowl season starts with a bowl, then the championship game coming up there. If your team is bowl eligible, congratulations, get some extra money, go travel and see them, but it's all about and all eyes on the extended championship going forward. The first year, we'll see 12 teams make this thing happen. Will it be a success? Will the right team win? Will be some crazy action from some referee that's going to screw it up? We shall see. Those dots in the sky that you see in these pictures are pictures people took of the mysterious drones that have been spotted over Bergen County, New Jersey. Bergen County has a few military bases and depots. It also houses a golf course owned by Donald Trump, and just general people who are kind of wondering, why are these things flying in the sky? Now, updating to the story, not on the story here we have here, most of these things have been identified. They've been identified by the Pentagon, and Admiral Kirby did an actual interview, or did some briefings on this, as they're actually authorized manned aircraft. Just lights from authorized manned aircraft. They're not really drones, but there are some drones flowing around, but most of them have been identified. Things like these lights here are just lights coming from aircraft that have flight patterns that have been put in by the FAA. They've been tracking them, but there have been a lot of them in months. For months, there have been a lot of these flying around, and people are freaking out about this. Now, the bigger discussion of this comes down to, why can't we shoot the damn things down? Which is, a good question. And the answer is because you can't, because you don't know who they're owned to, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to crash, things like that. But this is not Amazon trying to test out their drones to try to beat Walmart at their game. This is, what we can tell, actual aircraft with flight plans that are going someplace. They just seem to be really weirding out people in New Jersey right now. So this is where the split was not very good. This story should be connected to the previous story, because it's Trump, and it didn't happen. But like we say, these stories have no particular order as they're coming down. We put them in here, literally here. We just kind of spread them around so they just fit. And this is about the beef that Trump has with Canada and Mexico. And it's not quite a beef yet, but it's basically grandstanding, it's basically saber rattling. And this is a case where the president of France, a friend of France, of Canada, the prime minister of Canada, made a trip down to see Trump himself at Mar-a-Lago, took a smiling picture with a smiling face picture. That's what he took, and tried to talk to Trump. Then went back home and said, you know what? I tried to talk to him. This is what I said, and it's not quite working. The 25% tariffs that are being proposed against Canada and Mexico would have issues. In fact, they would make things cost more. Trump says tariff is a beautiful word, and there were tariffs before things going on. If we put tariffs on everything, it'll pay for stuff, and we won't pay any more taxes. As explained many, many times, a tariff is a tax or a levy of extra money on goods coming into a country. And so the country bringing them in must pay extra for those goods. Who pays it? The manufacturer and the store that's bringing them in there to pay extra for the goods. And because it costs more, the thought process is the foreign stuff costs more, the domestic stuff costs less. Let's buy more domestic stuff. That's how tariffs actually work. Except in this day and age, if the foreign stuff costs more, the domestic people just raise their costs because they can be the same cost as anyway, and everybody loses. Everything costs more in general. Trump tried to kind of play this off as Canada's just trying to talk whatever. So go back and be the good governor of our 51st state. And that made Canadians oddly angry. If Canadians can get angry, I guess they puffered up a bit, but they didn't like that comment so much. Now we're already hearing retaliation as energy from Ontario may be cut off to extreme points if these tariffs come through. And that's what we basically get from Canada: oil, gas, steel, agriculture. Those natural things come from there, and from Mexico as well. Now, Trump had a call with the president of Mexico, who Trump said she's going to fix it. And she said, I didn't say I was going to fix it. So take these all with very large grains of salt, or big old dump trunks full of salt. Trump is basically using this as a posturing method to kind of get some concessions before things happen, before he can put the tariffs on and get some concessions. We'll see how well they actually work. This is a presentation that we do to give you a bit more of what we do all week long. Sort of explain the fruits of our labor, as you will, with the things from the clips and the things you might have heard, and the fruits of your labor as well. But in order to grow, in order to get bigger, we need people to see us. And I got a great comment from someone yesterday. We'll talk about that probably sometime in the week, because it was a weekend comment. So it'll be something we'll talk in a week on the story gets covered, about the fact that he sees, that person, I'll say he, just general, sees this channel growing because the content is good. And he actually, I think, clicked on subscribe. I had to check that link again. But we're asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the work we do here. Now, things are changing. Things are in flux. As we're doing more things to be more focused, we're adding things, subtracting things, tweaking things back and forth. We need you. If you're seeing something that looks great, like it. If you don't like it, comment with what needs to be fixed. We'll fix it. If you think it looks great, share with other people so they can see it, and hopefully they will join in as well. The likes make the algorithm see what looks good to people to take a look at, and makes me see what looks good to work on. If you're not subscribed to any of our stuff in many places, maybe you're watching this on a whim, this popped up in your feed today, and we're glad for that one. Go to our website and see exactly where we are. The Conversation Project. This is conversationproject.com. We have many places where we are, just not the streaming live here. Subscribe so you don't miss us in your feed, whether we're coming to you live or in a replay. We are there for you to find us. Facebook, X, Threads, YouTube, TikTok. We are all over the place. Find us where we are. This next story, extremely graphic, so bear with me for this one. But you've seen the face and you've seen the cases, and they keep growing. The man's had a 25, 30-year career, and over the span of time, he's managed to rack up some numbers. And so people are coming out of the woodwork to basically trying to get their pound of flesh. We saw that with Bill Cosby. Cosby was basically a whole nother person behind the scenes for all the life that we knew of him in the public. And all those lives came back to haunt him at one point in time. Diddy now has an accuser. Actually, he has a new lawsuit with 3 new male accusers that happened after this one. But this is an accuser where a person actually did a interview on CNN, an anonymous interview. So they covered his face and did his voice thing. A John Doe from a claim in 2007, a man who was working security at a white party in the Hamptons. He was given a drink. The drink was tainted. He, got affected. And then he was basically kidnapped and accosted. Now, man said he hadn't told anybody about this since it happened in 2007. He was married at the time, but was embarrassed to talk about it. And so he's divorced. He doesn't have relationships. He's really just sort of recluse. But when one of the cases came out lately about one of the underage people came through, he filed the case. Now, the lawyers are calling foul on this one because they're saying that he actually happened. They're saying that he said it was 2008, but it filed for 2007. They fixed that if you can. Some of the details going back and forth are kind of sketchy, but they've sort of fixed that in the actual claim. And so we'll see what's happening. The man believes that he was laced with GHB and ecstasy to essentially be compliant. And then the assault happened, which was extremely painful, extremely embarrassing for what's going on. From that, he was blacklisted from security firm that he was worked for, had to leave the industry because of what happened. We'll see if this one goes to court. We have a lot of ones going to court, and this is not including the actual large racketeering charge that actually has him sitting in jail right now. Sean Combs has a lot to deal with right now, a lot on his mind, and he will have to either suffer the consequences or come out on some sort of glorious end in the back end. We have a lot of time to see how this one's going to play out. This next story isn't one of the larger stories, but allows me a chance to talk about media again. And this is the biggest one to talk about media, as SiriusXM isn't as traditional media as other folks like actual terrestrial radio and television. But SiriusXM as a satellite provider, which is basically the king of cars for the most part, and for people who like outsourced programming that they couldn't get in their markets. Football, for example, if you like the radio broadcast, you can get it in whatever market you want to. They're going to cut some jobs. They're going to cut some money, $200 million in cost, and move away from their streaming resources, which is an oddity because they put so much work into streaming because it's their future. Now they're pulling back from it. They had a reduction of about 3% in 2025 of February. They had a reduction in 2023 of March, about 475 people exactly. 106 people fired in February. But this is going to be another batch of folks. It's going to be another 100, another 3%, another 60, 200 employees going forward to leave some of the pressure, because SiriusXM generates revenue about $1 billion a year, but it also has operating losses of $6.8 billion. So I guess they don't generate revenue. They if it's not over the losses. So apologies for screwing that up in my business stuff. Should not have said that. They generate revenue, no actual profit, with $6 billion in losses. And the challenges are because radio is what it is. Terrestrial radio is what it is. People don't listen to the radio at all. And many people driving back and forth don't even sit around to put on the satellite radio to keep things going. They listen to podcasts. They listen to things that they download. They go from there and go with it. Sirius is in a very serious issue right now, trying to figure out how to market itself as a great technology to keep going as a legacy, because it is a legacy and the new stuff is not quite working as well. Let's talk about Haliey Welch, the Hawk Tour girl. The big thing about Haliey Welch is not the fact that she's still here. We talked about her podcast still being in the top 10, as it will. Maybe not quite number 3 anymore, as people are realizing that she really is not all that interesting and doesn't really interview very well. They bring big enough guests on with her. She had Mark Cuban on the day she started talking about going to crypto, so that was a big deal. But the deal that we're talking about is her meme coin, which basically technically isn't a meme coin. It was basically just a flat out scam from the get-go. Rapid climb of the pump and dump scheme that was Hawk, $Hawk, has been widely criticized, and just a big old disappointment all around. The short version of what happened was Hawk coin was put out on the market, and day one people bought it. Lots of fans bought it and put a lot of money into it, thinking this is going to be a big deal. And then the valuation dropped pretty quickly, about 90% within hours. How that happened? There wasn't a pre-sale, if you will, but there were some inside investors who had a big chunk at the beginning. So there was a coin that was in hand, and when the price went up, when people bought it, automatically they sold it within hours. And within hours, it dropped. So many people who loved them some Hawk Tour girl and loved them Haliey Welch and thought they were going to make a little money because she was going to do something for their fans. That's how they make the money, doing these crypto things. They lost big time. It got even bigger when CoffeeZilla, the internet detective, got onto a Twitter Spaces or X Spaces, whatever they call it these days, to kind of explain what had happened. He asked a question, some very basic interrogative questions, maybe a little loud and rude, but the guys going back and forth with them were loud and rude as well and didn't answer the questions. And in the middle of it, Haliey Welch is like, well, you know what? I'm going to bed. because that's what you do when you confront it with cheating out your fans. You go to bed. Haliey Welch has been extremely quiet on socials lately. I think when something got posted that was a one of her pre-posted things or weekly things popped up, and it's like, I don't think that should have came out after she scammed other folks. Many people are saying she's going to jail, which may or may not happen based on what's going on. The big thing is we don't know how much invested she was in, how much she got either paid up front to promote her own coin, or how much she owned in it, so she would profit from the ups and the downs. And we don't know if she literally said, press the button so this happens, or if she was really sort of sucked into it because she really is only a 7-month internet phenomenon. And she's a cash grabbing as much as possible because her time should be up. The extensions for some reason keep going, but her time should very most be done by now. The time is now for Matt Gaetz, or particularly the Matt Gaetz Show, starting in January 2025 on your local OAN channel, if you can get it. A 9 p.m. Eastern show, which means he's going to go up against Hannity and Maddow / the other lady on TV. And I guess on News Nation, which I actually watch, that would be News Nation would be Dan Abrams. And of course, Caitlin Collins, who I think is going to keep her 9 o'clock show, even though she's a White House correspondent. So I think she'll wrap up the night at there as well. That's all actually just digressing. OAN still exists. OAN's Dan Ball is going, in addition to the television show, he's going to host a weekly video podcast with OAN's Dan Ball that's going to target millennials, late Gen Zers, and early Gen X's audiences, people that I'm basically aged out of. I'm on the far end, meeting the far end of Gen X, so that's that. So I'm not in the podcast audience. I'm not in Matt Gaetz' audience. I'm not in the OAN audience. But basically, the guy that was going to run Department of Justice, the guy that was going to be the big top cop, the guy was going to be our attorney general, the guy was going to be the man running the show, running things, getting things done, is going to do okay because he's been auditioning for this for a while. He's been doing shows for quite some time as a congressman, just showing up, doing stuff. I guess Trey Gotti did the same thing. He did sort of do some hosting stuff before he actually left Congress and became the host on Fox. But essentially, he gets the show. Matt Gaetz is now on, and he's going to be there popping every single weeknight to do the Matt Gaetz thing for you, if you can find OAN, if you can find your local OAN. We are happy to have this story. This is Jamie Foxx, who revealed what his mystery illness was in the Netflix special that came out this week. So what had happened was literally a brain bleed that led to a stroke. And in that time, 20 days of him just being out of it with memory loss. He doesn't remember. He said in his special, he was working on a movie. He had a headache, asked someone for an aspirin. And then 20 days later, he's waking up in a wheelchair and fighting people because, he just had a stroke and he doesn't believe it. Meanwhile, he literally can't stand up and move around. This, if you watch the actual presentation, watch the actual special, it's a very moving and touching special. It may not be the funniest thing in the world, but it was a special that shows Jamie Foxx and his fans and his take on life and him being a bit spiritual, if you will, going forward. So it was a great show. Like I said, we watched it. I watched it last night with the wife. Me and Christina McKay watched it, and it was great. It wasn't the funniest thing in the world, but it was moving. It wasn't quite as moving to me as watching Dave Chappelle's last special, which was something that really touched me on how he was doing stuff. But this was something that was great for him to do, and of course, more promotion for the movie that's coming out very soon. Many people are happy to see Jamie Foxx is doing well. And the fact he could joke about the fact that people said he was cloned and all things like that. And just the fact that some people can make it. If you need a little bit of inspiration, watch the special, because the special will touch you and will make you feel special about yourself. It will bring it to you. A big part of the story was his daughter Annalise playing guitar in his bed to stabilize his vitals when he was just going nuts. She came and she started playing guitar and he calmed down, even when he was essentially comatose. He spends gratitude for his other daughter, who basically said, leave my daddy alone, and for his sister, who cracked a joke as they were bringing into the hospital, but also let the doctor know she already talked to God. We're going to get through this thing. It's a big deal. like I said, I hate to be re-rating it as a rater of stuff as I do, but it wasn't exactly the top special of the year, but it was an extra special, and you should check it out if you're a fan of Jamie Foxx or just want to know more details of what's going on. Now, obviously, things are embellished and it is a bit dirty. It is on the raw side, very blue activity on this one. So if you're not a fan, he gives you the big FU on the way out the door. But check it out. Read more stories about this one, and we are so glad that we did not lose this actor, this comedian, this activist, this entertainer, because we need more funny right now. We need a lot more funny right now, including a very good Donald Trump impression inside of this special. Which brings us, ironically, to our number 12 story. A person who also does not have a big cushy job in the administration yet, but we'll see what's happening. I think she's doing enough stuff for us as governor, us as governor of Arkansas. My governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She made a call that she can't actually make happen, but she's throwing out the bubbles there, thought bubbles, if you will, that buying junk food using SNAP benefits is wrong. And she wants to take a role in questioning how this has happened and enforcing more or less, actually less, purchase of junk style foods in SNAP benefits. She's urged the incoming Trump administration to prohibit the purchase of junk food using the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. A letter going to the Human Services Secretary, the nominee, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that guy directly, and the Agriculture nominee secretary, Brooke Rollins. Sanders is highlighting the items like soda, candy, and desserts that constitute nearly 23% of SNAP purchases, which amount to $25 billion of the purchases a year, expressing concern that that shouldn't happen. Let me go into some detail I got from some comments. So I don't know if this is fact, but I got comments from people who actually are on SNAP benefits. They say they just don't buy that stuff with their SNAP. They buy it with cash. They get this. I mean, it's simple. You buy it with cash. Now, SNAP, i.e., think of food stamps from back in the day. There have always been these sort of horror stories, trouble stories about people selling food stamps and then people use them to buy steaks and things like that. That, of course, was eliminated by that sort of fraud, eliminated by having a card, basically a debit card, which are benefits on it. That is a set amount. It works that way. But the initiative that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is pushing for in Arkansas, and hopefully she can actually make happen and go forward. Remember, this is federal money, so she can't just wave her hand and make it happen. It is to basically get people eating healthier, which is the goal, which is a good thing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants people eating healthier. That is a goal. That's a good thing. Snapping people on the fingers and saying, don't touch that candy bar, not exactly winning people over. They're not addressing food deserts. They're not addressing in education about food, not addressing people who have some addiction to various things. There are people addicted to sugar and stuff like that who it's a big issue. So they have those issues going on there. And it's not just people that eat junk food that are obese. That's also a thing as well. But because it's really, really great to use these as campaign ads and campaign pushes that all those people are stealing your money and wasting it on junk food, it's easy to say. It's much easier to say than it is to do to fix, either by legislation and punishment or by changing hearts and minds. Hearts and minds take a lot of effort to change. Sarah Huckabee Sanders in this very red state of Arkansas doesn't have to do much to change the hearts and minds of the people who are running things, but the people who get left behind are stuck. Oh, and yes, I get the chance to bring up the lectern. We've not seen yet. We've paid for it, but we've not seen it yet. If you see it, let us know. This program is sponsored by Ground News. Ground News is one of our sponsors that we have for the Conversation Project. If you want to visit them and see great things, use our link, use our access, and they will give you 50% off all their access, all their deals, all their services right now. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. Now, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard plenty of other news type podcasts and videos talk about it. Everybody's using Ground News personally. I use it personally for the work we do here. They use it wherever, and everybody suck out Ground News, looking for them to become one of their sponsors or have them sponsored up. And we did the same thing as well. What you get from Ground News is news aggregation, just like any other place going forward. But you get aggregation with a bit of context, a bit of knowledge, and just knowing exactly where your stuff's coming from and sort of why it is. They'll take stories, whether they're on a local level, a national level, and they'll give you all the links to all the locations where it's being presented and tell you more about their ownership. If that group is owned by a conservative leaning company, it'll be listed. By a liberal leaning company, it'll be listed. If it's more or less in the center, like an AP, a wire service, it'll be listed. You can see a headline. You can see the various headlines other people are covering, and you can see how that story is being covered by various spots. And one thing that's very awesome about Ground News is the blind spot feature. If you're a news silo person that you follow mostly right or mostly left, you're missing stuff. It's obvious because the mostly right are hiding some left stuff, mostly left are hiding some right stuff. What are they hiding? What do they not want you to know? You hit blind spot, you'll see what stories are being exclusively covered by conservatives or by liberals and not being covered properly or at all in other cases. You get to see what the people are talking about and how they're talking about it. It gets really interesting when you see two stories compared from two different venues with two very shockingly different headlines. The main points are the same, but the point they want you to get to is they bad, they good, or they good, they bad. You can see that using Ground News. Try the Advantage plan, which gives you all the access to all their features that you have, and you get it right now for 50% off by using our link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. Ground News is the best news aggregator out there. I'll say that in words like that. And if you actually use their full service, you get a chance to really see what it is you're not quite seeing in your news coverage. Let's promote ourselves for a moment. The Conversation Project lives online at this. It's theconversationproject.com. And what do we do at the Conversation Project? We also aggregate news. We look at news aggregators and news websites and news services and look to space out stories that seem like they may catch your attention and be conversational. And if they are, you let us know. You let us know by just engaging the stories we put out there. We have feeds. There are links on Facebook, on Twitter, on X. Twitter is X, and Threads. And when you follow us on our feeds, you can engage in the stories we put out every 50 minutes or so that we know what stories are worthy of talking about. The higher you engage in the story, the more you poke on it, the more you read it, the more you share it, the better chance we have of talking about it in our weekday morning show called Things You Might Have Heard, 5 days a week, and recapping it here for you here, or maybe doing other videos here or there as they go along. We want you to go to our website. This is conversationproject.com. We want to see many of our calls to actions. We have other sponsors there. Click on the sponsors link, visit other sponsors. They're all affiliate links. We get a small commission from you buying. We have a partnerships page. We'll get to the partners in a second. These are people who directly fund the work we do. We don't have a large standing on the internet or a large standing of partners, but we could use you and your help to keep things growing. We have links to where we are, everywhere we are, on TikTok, on Threads, on YouTube. So you can find us in a better place for you. You can get that as well, whatever is better to what your diet is. And of course, we ask you to follow the feeds and email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com, because that's the most important thing you can do. If you get us more attention, more stuff on that end, we can hopefully figure out more things. We're starting to find more streams of income. They're trickling in, so slowly we'll be able to do more things with that coming in. But every little bit helps, and I'm happy to tell you we are great stewards of what you give to us. We appreciate all you do and do not want to mess it up. Now, being stewards, let's talk about our partners. They use a service called buymeacoffee.com at buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne, and they give me monthly subscriptions to help fund the deal. The $1 subscription is spare change that Joy Winters is living in, and a cup of coffee at $5. Eldon Kidd, Colby Green, Harold Braxton. We also have the pot of coffee level at $20 a month. If you want to help fund the efforts that we have here, then yes, that $1 a month is not a lot, but it's a lot more than we had last month. We will take your funds, take your donations, and use them as good stewards to put back into the system here. And if you want to give one-time donations via faster apps like Cash App or Venmo or PayPal, there are links at our partners page as on the website as well. So go to this is theconversationproject.com/partnerships and see all the routes for partnerships, or go straight to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne and join in on one of the levels today. Last bit before we get out of here, one more time. The Conversation Project lives at thisistheconversationproject.com. Our email address, theconversationinbox@gmail.com. visit our website and email us to stay in contact with me directly so we know what we can do better for you as news providers. We are aggregators, yes. We also provide news and commentary and a way for you to find things to chat up. And hopefully you got the right ones here. Our feeds, most important ones are Facebook and X. Facebook.com/This is the Conversation Project, X.com/TH_conversation. Every 50 minutes or so, we see a news article posted on the feeds. Engage in the one that you like to, or engage in one that you really don't like so much, but you want people to chat it up. And the more you engage in the stories, better chance of talking about them in the future. On Mondays, we give you 10 stories from the full weekend. Tuesday through Friday, we'll give you 8 stories from the prior day. So there's a whole lot of stories to get to. And then come Saturday, 12 of those stories come here to be revisited, and hopefully revisited the right ones for you. And we say that hopefully because we are done. No hopes. It is over. Weekly roundup for week ending December 14th, 2024 is now in the books. Once again, we thank you so much for being a part of the show, the news nerds that you are, for watching and for engaging to tell us what stories to talk about. We've got 12 news stories from this week's news, I should say, coming up a week from now. So what stories will make that cut and what stories make the cut daily that you really want to chat up? It's up to you. You let me know. We'll bring it back. Love you. Mean it so much. We're done for this week. Let's have another great week out there. And then, of course, coming back for the roundup to see what stories actually made the biggest impact over the next 7 days or so.